All right, I think I got it. This is Prep Test 74, Section 1, question number 24. And it says, any driver involved in an accident leading to personal injury or property damage exceeding $500 is legally required to report the accident to the Department of Motor Vehicles unless. So there's this rule, I'm going to leave the unless aside for a second. I want to make sure I understand what the trigger is in the first place. The unless is going to be a caveat, right? Unless works like it's like an escape hatch. So there might be a way out of this, but before I think about the way out, I want to think about the way that you even get into where the rule applies to you in the first place. And the way the rule applies to you in the first place is if you're a driver, not a passenger, a driver, and you have to be involved in an accident that leads to personal injury. Okay, so whatever that means. I mean, anything probably is personal injury, right? You get like a little scratch on your arm or something. I mean, that is personal injury. Or property damage that exceeds $500, which of course, you know, any car accident you assume is going to be over $500. But you could also like hit a fire hydrant or something, or, you know, there's a lot of ways that you could get $500 in damage. So either of those two things, that is any personal injury or property damage exceeding $500, if you're the driver in that accident, then you are legally required to report this accident to the DMV unless, so now here's the way out of it, unless the driver is incapable of doing so. Well, okay, if you're dead, you can't do it, or if you're in a coma, you can't do it, or if you're, I don't know, who knows what that really means, incapable of doing so. That seems pretty subjective, open to interpretation. Lawyers on both sides could argue what incapable of reporting actually means. But anyway, here's what the rule says. The rule says if you're the driver and there is any personal injury or property damage over $500 and you're capable of reporting, then you have to report. So if you don't report, that means either you're incapable or there was no property damage exceeding $500 and no personal injury at all. Anyway, here comes the actual application of the rule. It says Ted is not required to report the accident in which he was involved as a driver. Well, okay, so Ted was a driver. There was an accident. If Ted is not required to report, then that means one of two things. It means either he's incapable of doing so. So if Ted's in a coma, he's not required to report anymore because he's incapable of reporting. But if Ted is capable of reporting, then his only other way out is there was no personal injury and no property damage exceeding $500. Either of those things would trigger Ted's reporting if he's capable of reporting. So if he's actually not required to report, then I know one of those two, he had to get out one of those ways. So coma, that'd be good for Ted. I mean, that'd be really bad for Ted, but that'd be good for Ted in this case where he wouldn't have to report the injury, or there was no personal injury at all and no property damage over $500. So which one of the following can be properly inferred from the statements above? That is definitely a must be true question. If you've studied anybody else, they might call that an inference question. I'm here to tell you there's no such thing as an inference question. It's not useful to think about inference questions. This is a must be true question. Based on the facts that we were given, which one of these five must be true? And here, I can't always predict the answer, but here I can predict the answer, I think, pretty well. I think the answer has to say there was no personal injury and no property damage over 500. That would be one way to get Ted off the hook. And the only other way to get Ted off the hook would be Ted is incapable of reporting. I think one of those things has to be true, or else he would have to report this accident according to the rule that we were given. So, A, if Ted is incapable of reporting, then the accident did not lead to property damage. No, I mean, the accident could have led to $1 billion in property damage. That wouldn't matter. If Ted is incapable of reporting, then he doesn't have to report. So it's definitely not A. B, if Ted's car was damaged in excess of $500 in the accident, well, that would trigger his reporting requirement. Then he is incapable of reporting the accident to the Department of Motor Vehicles. And yeah, I do know that for sure, because it said in the facts that Ted is not required to report. And that means that if there was damage over $500, then he has to be in a coma or something. So the answer for number 24 is going to be B for sure. Let me go through C, D, E, just see if I can eliminate these. C, someone other than Ted is legally required. We don't know that. Come on. That's a terrible, terrible answer for a must be true question. We don't know that anybody else is ever going to be required to do anything according to the rules that we were given. D, if Ted is incapable of reporting the accident, then he was injured. No, we don't know that. It could be that there was no personal injury and no property damage, and he's incapable of reporting because of whatever reason. He's deaf, dumb, mute, blind. He can't report anything ever. So I don't know. I just don't know. There's no way I know D for sure. E, either no one was injured in the accident or the accident did not lead to property damage exceeding $500. I think that's the most tempting wrong answer. But if you picked E, you forgot about Ted's other way of getting out of the reporting requirement here, which was what if Ted's incapable of reporting. Anyway, B, I know for sure. But if the given facts are true, then B also has to be true. So the answer there is B.